starting a new week. It's what the lone survivors in minor league baseball is AAA now. So yesterday was the final day of AA. Obviously, Major League Baseball has about 2.5 more weeks ahead of it, but we're in the home stretch. Postseason races are fully here, and we're kind of tying a bow on the minor league season as a whole. Baseball is like nearing its end, yet we're gearing up for the postseason, which is kind of the best time of the year, right?
Yeah, it's bittersweet, especially for guys like us. I mean, I'm sure you've had a long season. I know you love what you do, but anytime you're broadcasting so many times, so many hours a week, there's definitely that time like, oh, it'll be nice to have a little bit more free time. On my end, I can't relate to having to get to the ballpark every day, but just keeping up with everything on the minor league side can be a little bit exhausting. So I am excited, but I know 5 days in, I'm going to be like, I wish I could check the box scores. So I am very excited for the Arizona Fall League, which we'll touch on a little bit in this episode, just about how many elite prospects are going to be there. And then for our more in-depth breakdown on the Arizona Fall League prospects out there, you can listen to the call up. But I'm excited for the focus that kind of baseball transitions to now, because baseball has so much going on at all times, right? You have 30 teams, of course, but games every day, essentially, all over. And then you got minor league games all the time, all over, so many levels. But then all of a sudden you get to this time of year where minor league's over, all of the bad baseball teams eliminated. And then you just focus in on a handful, a little bit more with the expanded playoffs, but still a handful of baseball's best teams. And all eyes are on, those teams. And it's really fun to concentrate it and have this final stretch here, which I think is going to be one of the more entertaining postseasons because of the new rules, because of the parity in baseball. I know we have our top heavy teams, but overall there's a lot of really talented ball clubs. I think it's going to be a really fun home stretch.
By the way, Just Baseball Show, Jack.
Monday, September. They knew that already, though, I think, unless they just play roulette and click play on random podcasts.
Yeah, and I know that's what normal people do, right? That's what I do. I just kind of like type in 3 letters and I say, you know what? Play it.
See, I think if you do that, though, there's like a 90% chance you just get like an unsolved mysteries, like crime podcast. Because I have a feeling that's 90% of podcasts are like crime podcasts. The other 10% are guys trying to talk sports with their friends and turn it. Actually, no, I'm leaving out the health fitness people that just tell you what you're doing wrong in your life and like how you can make it better. And all you have to do is just eat salad every day and drink water. So
my health and fitness tips actually come at the gas station when I'm filling up, Better Together with Maria Menounos. That is on every gas station.
I live in New York.
Oh yeah. So you don't do gas stations. I forgot. But every gas station I go to, I get Better Together, like the life tip of the day for Maria Menounos.
As you like contemplate whether you should undo one more notch on your belt.
Correct. Exactly.
It's tight, but the next notch will be too loose and you're like stuck in between.
Right. I'm thinking, do I get a Reese's Fast Break or a Three Musketeers when I walk into this gas station right now? And she's saying, drink lemon juice. It's great. I'm like, okay, whatever. We're gonna bounce around the league a little bit. We'll obviously check in on the postseason hunt and the standings here. But Hunter Greene made his return to the mound. That's what I want to start with.
Yeah,
this guy is a freak show. He has not been the best rookie pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds this year. Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Nick Lodolo has been objectively better. Nick Lodolo looks like a better major league starting pitcher. But when Hunter Greene is on the hill, you got to tune in.
You got to watch.
What was it? It was 33 pitches at 101 or above, 8 pitches at 102 or above. This guy was averaging 101 on his fastball. Hunter Greene was back. Were you shocked to see the velocity as high as it was off the IL?
Yeah, I absolutely was. I was expecting to see a few hundreds or whatever, but when it's a shoulder, unfortunately, it seemed more precautionary. They caught it early, but it was a shoulder twinge, if I'm not mistaken. Anytime you see that, you're like, okay, usually the velo is a little bit slower to come back. You hear dead arm, all those things. The shoulder, when velo is down, 90% of the time, it's a shoulder issue. So I thought maybe we'd see him kind of ease back and maybe not have the velo all the way back. It was all the way back, maybe, and then some. And I think the Reds were very cautious with him. So he's probably been ready to throw for a while. They took their time, built him up and whatever. So this might be some of the freshest he's felt since the beginning of the season. And we saw that. I mean, he dominated. And beyond that, the command was solid, which is really encouraging because you see guys come off the IL and they don't command their stuff as well. They feel a little bit, just out of sync with their mechanics, especially their arm timing. Everything. You don't throw a baseball for a while, you try to pick it up. It's a little bit weird. Hunter Greene seemed to be very comfortable, and you talk about how many pitches he threw over triple digits. That was a lot of fun to watch. But he had that slider working for him too, which is just really good because he is great for baseball. He is a ton of fun to watch. And even though we've been really high on him, it is funny to note that, Nick Lodolo has been both graduated now, was our top pitching prospect in that red system. And that's while Hunter Greene is throwing 102. Testament to Nick Lodolo more than any indictment on the special Hunter Greene.
I think so. And we'll walk through a couple of Lodolo's last starts here, but Hunter Greene, the final line on him yesterday was exceptional, or on Saturday was exceptional. 6 innings, 4 hits, no runs, no walks for Hunter Greene, 11 punch outs through 81 pitches through 6 innings, 58 for strikes. That is as good an outing as you can ask for from Hunter Greene. And remember,
against the Cardinals
at Busch. He took a no-hitter into the 9th inning against Pittsburgh. Is that right? Or they finished off the no-hitter. They still lost. He went 8 no-hit innings. Here's the thing. That was not like that, no-hitter of an outing because he walked 6 or 7 guys in that game, I want to say. So, there were a ton of base runners here. Here, there were 4 hits against him, all 4 singles, didn't walk anybody. This is actually more encouraging to me than the 8 no-hit innings with 6 walks.
Absolutely. And what's even crazier is he was heading in this direction before he went down with the injury. You look at the last start he made was against the Marlins, and he didn't look uncomfortable or injured in that start whatsoever. He went 6 innings of 1-hit ball, struck out 8, walked nobody. If you even go larger to his last 12 starts, which he hit the IL after his August 1st outing, but you go all the way back to June 1st. This was a direction that Greene was heading in. So I assume just the mechanics, he cleaned it up. He was able to find something that works for him. And even with the injury in between, he's been able to keep that momentum going. Over his last dozen starts, Jack, he's only walked about 2.3 batters per 9. Yeah. If he's there while striking out 11.5 per 9, he's in business. And
an all-star.
It looks like Hunter Greene's figuring it out on the command side as well. That's going to be a problem for hitters. And the 1-2 punch of Lodolo and Greene has a chance to be one of the most exciting 1-2 punches in baseball on the pitching side.
Who the hell would have thought we're talking about the Cincinnati Reds and we're leading with the Cincinnati Reds on September 19th? Can't believe we're doing it, but real quick to wrap on the Reds, that is a start for Hunter Greene, 6 innings, 11 punch outs, no walks. Last time Nick Lodolo was out on the mound, 6 1/3, 11 punch outs, no walks. Yes, 6 hits, yes, 3 earned runs. But if Lodolo's striking dudes out and creating this much contact on the ground,
he gets so many ground balls.
He's an ace.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he is. I think there's going to be a little bit of inconsistency in the early going to be like that bona fide ace, but he's going to continue to show more and more flashes, I think, and more consistency. And soon we will be considering him a surefire ace, but he's a frontline guy already. We've seen it. I think he struck out more than 30 guys over his last 3 starts combined. This is a special lefty who's continuing to kind of figure out how to make his stuff work for him as well. Those two are going to be a blast. I'm interested to see how they piece together the rest of the rotation because Graham Ashcraft looked really good for them before he went down with an injury. Could be a very solid middle of the rotation starter for them. Of course, Luis Castillo departs. Of course, Tyler Mahle departs, but they got hauls for both of those guys, have their pitching prospects coming up and making an impact. I'm excited to conceptualize this rotation a little bit as we move forward because I think you've got your 3 spots figured out for the most part, especially the 1-2 punch at the top with Lodolo and Greene. I think you can feel good about Ashcraft fitting in there as your number 3 for now. Eventually, probably number 4 if you add a veteran. Go add a veteran in there. Now you've got a solid 4 starters that you can rely on. And I'm interested to see how they kind of fill the rest of this out because they've got prospects like Abbott. Chase Petty, I think, is going to get up closer or quicker than people think. It's going to fill out, but I want to see them go get one vet, and all of a sudden, this is a sneaky good rotation.
I say sign a Wade Miley, Mike Minor type again, where you just sign a random generic veteran to be the 4 and have Abbott and Brandon Williamson fight to the death for the 5 spot in the
Williamson too.
rotation
Yeah,
out of spring
absolutely.
training.
Absolutely. I'm in on that. And both of those guys, Abbott and Williamson, have way more upside than a 5. So this could be a very fun rotation. Good for baseball when one of the worst teams in a specific division is trending towards being good soon. We've talked about the offense, and we'll talk about it a lot in the offseason of what that offense can look like. Reds are heading in the right direction. The Central should get better before it gets worse. We know the Cardinals are going to be good for a while as well, and the Brewers are never bad.
Yeah. Let's burn some sage real quick. Let's clear the room of Reds baseball and talk about some winners. Just rapid fire. Does this team win the division? Yes or no? We'll go through the 3 wildcard teams in each league as it stands right now. Are those the 3 wildcard teams? Yes or no? AL East, the Yankees. Do they win the division? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Toronto 4.5 back, Tampa 6 back. I'm with you. Yankees win. AL Central, Cleveland 4.5 ahead of the White Sox, who are 3.5 ahead of Minnesota. So Minnesota 7 back at Cleveland, White Sox 4.5 back at Cleveland. Do the Guardians win the division? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Houston, yes.
Done.
NL East, do the Mets win the division? Yes or no? They're a game ahead of Atlanta.
No.
I'm with you.
I think the Braves do it. It's going to come down to their head-to-head games, and I just like the Braves against them head-to-head. I just have all year.
St. Louis, yes.
Yeah.
The Dodgers, absolutely.
Absolutely.
3 wild card teams in the American League. Toronto in the top spot. Tampa, a half game ahead of Seattle for that 2 spot. Baltimore 5 back of Seattle for that final spot. Toronto, Tampa, Seattle. Are those the 3 American League wildcard teams? Yes or no? And in that order, yes or no?
Yes. And I think Seattle overtakes Tampa for that 2nd spot. Both teams have not looked great over the last week and a half. But I think Seattle's just built for a bit more. But although Glasnow, I think, is working back, right?
Glasnow working back.
That is an interesting wrinkle in this. I saw some brief clips of him looking nasty in Durham.
I saw him top 99.
Yeah, that's a big factor here. And Eugenio Suarez hits the IL. It doesn't seem like he's going to be out for long. It's a finger thing. But he's been good defensively this year. Obviously, the bat's been really good over the second half. Conventional thinking tells me like Rays have the momentum going for them in that regard, but I just think Seattle's a better baseball team. Still a lot of games to go, relatively speaking. I think Seattle takes care of business. Soft schedule. They also have games coming up against, like Angels, Rangers, whatever. I think they're going to be able to take that 2nd spot.
Yeah, 2 fingers that we got to get to in a moment. But first, the NL wild card. Atlanta 10.5 clear of the 2nd spot, which is Philly. San Diego is a half game back for that final spot. Milwaukee is a game and a half back of the final wild card spot. We both said we think Atlanta wins the division. So the Mets as the top wild card team. Does it finish the Mets, Philly, San Diego? Yes or no?
Mets, Philly, San Diego. Dude, I'm nervous that Milwaukee can steal that 3rd spot.
Yep.
San Diego somehow is 6-4 in their last 10. I feel like San Diego stinks at all times at this point. And it's like, that's a team I've been optimistic about, but it's pretty crazy to look at like Philadelphia and San Diego. And you'd think that there'd be almost more of a gap between the two with the way the Phillies have played over the last couple months and with the way things have seemed in San Diego. I think it's just because relative to the expectations, San Diego has been a massive disappointment. Specifically, Juan Soto, I think, has been a massive disappointment, which we could probably talk about that, honestly. But again, this is another one. Conventional thinking telling me no way that this Padres team relinquishes it, because also Milwaukee's just a flawed baseball team in some aspects, but they keep hanging in there. They keep winning ball games. They give the Yankees and have continued to give the Yankees a very tough series. I'm nervous. I'm going to say Padres hold on, but I don't feel good about that. I think easily the Brewers can sneak in and steal this wild card spot, this 3rd wild card spot.
On Saturday at 8:05 p.m. Eastern, I would have said that Milwaukee is a wild card team and San Diego misses the postseason. And seeing Joe Musgrove bounce back the way he did on Saturday against Zach Gallen in Arizona, I figured if San Diego lost that game and Milwaukee was a half game within the final wildcard spot, I was going to say, you know what? The Brewers have all sorts of momentum here, and Joe Musgrove is still a shell of himself. He
Yeah.
bounced out of that beautifully. He twirled a gem, and all you need when Musgrove is on is 2 runs against Zach Allen. That's all they got. They won 2-0.
Yep.
Musgrove was big. Hader finally fucking closed the game.
That's a huge one. If Hader is back even just to 65% of what he once was, they can feel a lot better about their situation. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think from that lens, if Musgrove, I mean, I told Javi, I was like, hey, Javi, I would love for you to write something on one of our guys at Just Baseball. He's been on the show a couple of times, obviously focuses on Padres for us, but does a little bit of everything.
Hard to get him to write stuff. So
yeah. So I know I hit him up and he's like, oh, I'm in on like a Musgrove piece, would love to dive into his struggles in the second half, and then he shoves. So we were probably tabling that one, and I'm glad we are. My one thing is this: the Brewers end the season the most ideal way possible. They've got the Marlins on the 29th and 30th of this month, as well as the 1st and 2nd. That's a 4-game set. And then they finish with 3 games against the D-backs. D-backs are a sneaky tough team, but having the Marlins for 4 and the D-backs for 3 is a pretty solid way to end the season, I think. It's gonna be an interesting little finish here, and I think it's gonna be fun. This is probably gonna be the closest showdown we'll have, really, in regards to the playoff. And it's funny, we expanded the playoffs, and there's not that much drama really at the end of this season, unless something crazy happens. There just doesn't look to be that much drama.
Let's start the schedule next Tuesday, move forward for Milwaukee and San Diego. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Milwaukee hosts St. Louis. San Diego hosts the Dodgers. Very tough series. Then you mentioned Milwaukee home against Miami. San Diego is going to be home against the White Sox that weekend.
It's not easy either.
It's not easy. Then you go to that Monday, October 3rd. You mentioned Milwaukee home against Arizona. San Diego hosting San Francisco. San Francisco is not going to be a shell of itself. Rodon will still likely be pitching. Logan Webb will still likely be pitching. And that's how the season ends here. So Milwaukee has an easier end than San Diego does.
Yeah. But it's baseball. It's baseball. And the Marlins, you'll have a Marlins team that's playing with nothing to lose and would love to play spoiler. And you have a D-backs team that would absolutely love to play spoiler. So that's where it'll be fun. That's the one disappointing aspect of this this final part of the season here is I was hoping for a little bit more wild card suspense with the expanded playoffs, but I think we'll get some National League wild card suspense between the Brewers and the Padres, and that'll be a fun little showdown there.
Yeah, real quick before we get to those fingers that I teased. Juan Soto, 37 games in San Diego. I understand 33 walks and 22 punch-outs. I understand a 373 OBP. But I also see that he's hitting 205. In 37 games, he has 8 extra base hits. And in 37 games, he has a 696 OPS as a San Diego Padre. He's not cutting it.
I mean, this is what you gave up your whole farm system for, right? This is a guy that you presumably extending if you gave all this up, who you are going to give up $500 million for, right? Like, that is not what he has looked like whatsoever. And baseball is baseball, and you're going to slump. Things are going to happen. But at what point do we start, pointing the finger at Juan Soto and saying, hey, bro, you got to put up or shut up at this point, right? Because we saw him turn down one of the largest contracts ever, right? Which, understandable. I get it. He has been one of baseball's best hitters. But you got to do it at some point, or else, we're going to go into probably next season without any contract clarity. And he's going to really have to perform to exceed the number that he turned down. Because at what point do we start looking at it and saying, okay, how can you just hand him a contract with a ton of confidence with the way he has struggled as of late? I don't think that anybody is doubting Soto's ability, but it does kind of give you pause here when you're contemplating giving him $500 million. Ultimately, I think he's going to be fine and he's going to start hitting, and it could happen right in the postseason and Juan Soto will come back. But I've seen some of the swings he's been taking. He looks very uncomfortable and out of sorts, and I've never really seen that out of Juan Soto.
It feels like he's falling off a lot, honestly. Lefty bat, it feels like he is falling out of the back of the left-handed hitter's batter's box more often than he ever is. And usually this guy is like, he wants to throw all of his weight towards the pitcher's mouth. That's where everything is going.
He rotates.
Yeah, and he rotates.
He rotates so explosively and like nobody's business. And the way he controls his body is incredible. But yeah, I agree. I think that's something that's kind of gone to the wayside, is he's just not really controlling his body nearly as well as he normally does. And the plate discipline's still there, right? He's chasing that 9% of the time since he has joined the Padres, which I don't even know if I've ever seen that. Like, I mean, that is one of the best chase rates you're ever going to see. He's not whiffing a ton in the zone either. It's just, he's slightly off with the body, and it's enough for weak contact. Not as much of the consistent production that we're used to seeing, and a 221 BABIP is kind of going to highlight that. I mean,
that's
that is
incredible.
Insane. It's insane.
I didn't know BABIP gets that low,
especially for a guy that hits the ball so hard.
Yeah.
It is just not the Juan Soto we're used to. And you talk about kind of the pulling off and just the body not quite being where, we're used to seeing it be. That's going to affect you left on left. That front shoulder is the focus for every left-handed hitter, left on left. 184 against lefties since joining the San Diego Padres. So it kind of backs up your point there, pulling off of everything, just not quite under control the way we're used to seeing Juan Soto. I think he'll be fine, but it is surprising to see.
Do you see it too? Do you see him pulling off more in San Diego than like we really ever have in his career?
Just pulling off and just seems like we're not seeing the same swing every time. Like there's sometimes where he's just throwing his arms at it and just looks fooled. It seems like a combination of pitch recognition, body control. Like he just looks like a guy who's slumping. Yes. And he's never looked like a guy who's slumping.
He's not supposed to look like that.
No, he's supposed to be impervious to that.
Yes.
And I think maybe a little bit of it is the book is out on Soto, relatively speaking, quote unquote, right? The book as to how you can slightly make him uncomfortable. We talked about this with Vladdy, right? Vladdy had his tough stretch in the early part of the season because the book was out, quote unquote, which meant that the numbers were still fine, but lower. This is a more dramatic struggle, and I am interested to see how it continues, because he's always been great left on left, and that's been maybe the most glaring concern for me over this stretch has been the left on left struggles.
If the Padres don't make the postseason, Juan Soto's hitting 205 right now as a San Diego Padre in 37 games. What's he hitting if the Padres do relinquish this final wild card spot to the Brewers?
What he is continuing to do, I think.
You think 205? You think he ends like 50 games hitting 205 with the Padres?
If they don't make it, yeah. I mean, he needs to hit for them. I think it's more important that Joe Musgrove pitches, which is crazy to say. But I think
I might actually push back on you on that. I think because Soto's out there every day, and we know Soto can change games by himself.
I agree. It's just the pitching is so concerning for me at points. I mean, Sean Manaea looks horrible. I'm always nervous about, he's been great, but what Yu Darvish are you going to get? What Blake Snell are you going to get?
Clevenger looks terrible.
Clevenger stinks. So I'm like, okay, at least you can lean on Joe Musgrove being that guy for you every fifth day. They've seemed to weather the storm with Juan Soto's struggles for somehow. Other guys have picked him up here and there. In the postseason, another story. But I think to get to the playoffs, I do want to see a few more quality starts. But I agree, because you only have 2 more Joe Musgrove starts,
or 3,
and you've got Juan Soto playing every day. So that is the question. My problem is, if Musgrove is pitching the way he's pitched over the last, month, besides the last start he made, those are guaranteed losses, 3 guaranteed losses. Yeah. So that's the difference. He can make or break you a little bit more, but no, they need Soto to step it up. And it's pretty crazy that we're even having this conversation. That was kind of just like they added Soto. Let's hope that everybody else does what they need to do.
Yep. 100%. We'll get to the fingers. Do you have your product with you?
I think I used it.
You used your product?
Yeah, I used it.
You have a package of the product?
I do. I haven't used the blue raspberry one yet.
Okay.
So I still have the blue raspberry one.
We're going to take a moment to tell you about Diet Smoke. Diet Smoke is the solution to avoid those, quote, oh shit, I'm way too high moments. Diet Smoke makes Delta 8 THC, Delta 9 THC, and CBD products that are perfectly balanced. They're gummies, drinks, and vapes. They're not only delicious, they are guaranteed to give you that beautiful buzz you've been looking for without melting you into the couch. They extract their THC and CBD from American-grown hemp, meaning they can ship directly to your door. No prescription, no sketchy weed dealer, no need to even leave the house. Diet Smoke just released a bunch of new products and flavors, so no matter what type of mood you're in, they've got you covered. So if you're ready to get that perfect high, head over to dietsmoke.com and use code JUSTBASEBALL. One word, Just Baseball, for 15% off your entire purchase. Must be 21 and older to order. Blue Raz.
I was just reading, some of the stuff on the back. Lab tested, USA made, time release. It's got time release situation going on, and fat free, which we know that's huge.
Fat free is so important.
Fat free is so huge. They even have like a little QR code on the back where you can like scan for the lab results.
So they're new school.
They're new school. They're transparent. I'm in. I'm absolutely in. Recommended use. Start with one gummy. Adjust your serving size as needed. After ample time, up to 2 hours.
Man, I am a sucker for transparent and new school.
Yeah, there we go. Right? No, I thought you're a sucker for old school.
Old school baseball thinking. Yes.
New school Delta 8.
Yes. So I prefer if guys just slap it the other way. Joey Gallo. I mean, come on, dude. Stop hitting homers. Hit singles the other way, and you can hit 400, man.
Yeah, I agree.
But that blue Raz Delta 8, sign me up, man.
I'm in.
Let's talk fingers. Ozzy Albies fractured right pinky finger. So right after he comes off the 60-day, he is back on the 10-day. He play one game or two. I saw he was the 8-hitting second baseman for Atlanta on Saturday night.
Which is like what he is. So well, first of all, it stinks for Ozzy Albies. Before I rip him as a baseball.
Hold on. Yeah, 2 silver sluggers. He's not an 8-hitting second baseman.
On that team, he is. On that team, he absolutely is. That's what I meant. On that team, he is. But also, I think it's a testament to where second base was and where it's going to be. Sucks for Ozzy Albies. I really feel for him. Works hard to get back. Finally gets back and then goes down with that injury. Fortunately, it's just a pinky situation, so he should be back for the postseason. But to answer your question, Jack, it was a game and a half before he went down. And he did have a hit finally in both of those games. So it sucks because I know the Braves were happy to get him back. I know he's a big part of that clubhouse. And yeah, I mean, he can hit for power, especially from the right side. And I wouldn't say it's a big blow for them in terms of their team. They're the best team in baseball, basically, without him, besides the Dodgers. But it is a big blow for morale. You're probably excited to get him back. It was a big part of your World Series club. And unfortunately, he goes down. But, when you look at the ball club as a whole, are you really concerned about, their outlook with or without him? I mean, how much of a difference does Ozzy Albies really make for this Braves team?
I'm not sure. I'm pulling up their record since June 14th because I'm very curious about it. His last game before the injury was June 13th. So if I go to date range, I'm on the portal, please give me a moment. I said June 14th, 2022 until now. Let's go pitching stats. The Atlanta Braves are 55-28 since Albies went down. That's the third best record in baseball, the second best in the National League, only behind 63-21 from the LA Dodgers.
Yeah.
They have not been affected.
And why would they be? Like, if realistically speaking, like, we can focus on Albies, the individual, and look, he's had some great years. You even look at what he did in 21, 30 homers, doesn't get on base at a great clip, but to be in the back of that lineup and be able to hit a homer basically at any spot, a 30 home run guy, I consider that one somebody that could go yard almost in any spot. At the same time, 3.9 F4. Yes, the stolen bases are nice, but I think that's somewhat of what you're getting from Vaughn Grissom at this point. He's given them a 0.8 F4 in 32 games, which is on pace for roughly the same amount in 156 games, roughly the same amount of power output. I think slightly less, but a little bit more of the on-base skills, a little bit of, I think, the same defense. I don't know if you can count on Grissom in the postseason the same way that you can count on Ozzie Albies as more of a veteran type of presence, even though he's still extremely young. But I mean, man, Von Grissom's been able to kind of give you the same production. So I don't think it's this devastating loss. It does stink from just a fan favorite and, a guy who's been there perspective, but I don't think the Braves are going to have any problem replacing that production. And they've done a fine job doing so with somebody like Von Grissom.
And they've survived with second base production being below average in the grand scheme of Major League Baseball. I have WAR by position, and the second base position for the Atlanta Braves has contributed a 2.1 FWAR so far, which is 17th in baseball, sandwiched between Kansas City and the Red Sox. Kansas City, their second baseman for this year has been what? It was Whit Merrifield and then Michael Massey.
Yep.
And for Boston so far this year, it's been Story, right?
Yeah. For most of it, like for 95 games.
For 95 games. It was 64 games of Albies and then a hodgepodge of other guys, including Von Grissom here. 2.1 FWAR. By the way, best FWAR among second base positions in baseball. Who is it? What team gets the most FWAR out of the second base position?
It's going to be like the freaking Marlins.
It's going to be the freaking Marlins, man.
I knew it. That's kind of crazy.
A tenth of a win ahead of St. Louis and Tommy Edman.
You know why, right?
Jazz.
Plus.
Birdie.
Yep.
Stolen
Jazz
bases.
plus Birdie equals actually a really good season.
Jazz plus Birdie equals an MVP.
Yeah, two guys that played parts of a season this year. But, I mean, Jazz still leads the Marlins in like every offensive category. And John Birdie in his 90 games has led the Marlins in a lot of offensive categories as well. So that is very funny and very telling for the Fish. One thing I want to mention on the Grissom side of things, defense has hurt him a little bit. He was somebody that wasn't playing a ton of second base before he got caught up. He was playing shortstop, kind of moving all over. I think he's going to get more comfortable there. But what's crazy is even with the -2 defensive run save, -4 outs above average, you'll get what he was doing this year. I talk about the 0.8 FWAR in his, 32 games. Albies had played 64 games this season, a 1.1 FWAR. So at this point, you're looking at what they were doing this year. Grissom has been on pace to be more productive. And again, I think it's not really much of a blow there. And I don't think they care too much about second base defense. It's not like Grissom's a liability out there. And I think he's a little bit more dynamic. So it's going to be interesting when the postseason comes around. If Grissom continues to hit, how does that all work here? No brainer. If you're facing a lefty, Albies is in the freaking lineup. Look at his splits. We've talked about that. But if you're facing a tough right-handed pitcher, I might want Grissom in there instead. I don't know. Is that crazy to say?
No, it's not crazy to say. It's just crazy because of the narrative that has been built around Ozzie Albies.
Correct.
And 7 years, $35 million is disrespectful to a superstar. But what you're saying, Ozzie Albies,
not a superstar,
is one of the best platoon second basemen in baseball. And 7 years, $35 million is a great deal for one of the best platoon second basemen in baseball.
Like, that's the thing is you look at his career, right? And we've talked about the splits a ton, but against lefties, meaning as a right-handed hitter, he's at 328 with 33 pumps in 665 at-bats. I mean, that's fantastic, right? Like, that is as good as it gets. If we want to get to the more advanced stats, that's a 139 WRC plus from the right side, a 94 WRC plus from the left side. Von Grissom's going to give you better output than Ozzie Albies from the left side. I really think so. So that's the tough part. Like, are you platooning? Probably not. Albies is still that like a regular for you, but man, I don't know. I think you're hurting yourself. Again, against a left-handed pitcher, no brainer. You are going to put Ozzie Albies in there because he is disgusting from the right side of the plate. But I think they've got some interesting decisions to make. But I see Snicker being old school and like, Albies is our guy. He's going in there. So I'm very interested to see how they handle that when Albies does come back.
Yeah. And the good news is in terms of second base defense, my last point on this, you mentioned you're losing a little bit with Grissom at second base on the defensive side. Think about the shift. Think about where Grissom's going to be. You have a security blanket of Dansby Swanson on the same side of the infield as him, and Matt Olson, who is as gifted a defensive first baseman as we've got pretty much. Yep. So you have some security there with second base. You have no security if your shortstop is bad defensively. Von Grissom's also not bad defensively. He's just not as good as Albies. So,
No, and I think he's still getting his feet wet. Like he's going to continue to get better. I don't know if that happens now or next year, but like, he'll be fine. He'll be a good defender at second base.
And last time I checked, Ron Washington is still on that staff. And we know from the movie Moneyball, Ron Washington knows how to teach infielders.
Yeah.
And from a lot of other people saying that, but also from the movie.
But specifically Moneyball, which is my information source for all things baseball.
That's actually the only, that's why I value OBP so highly. That's the only metric I really care about because I saw a movie with Brad Pitt in it. Other one, just the tip. Eugenio Suarez fracturing the tip of his right index finger, according to Ryan Divish of the Seattle Times. Scott Service said that. So thankfully, it was just the tip for Eugenio Suarez, but he's on the 10-day. This hurts Seattle. It looks like they're in a really good spot to make it, even if Suarez is out for the remainder of the regular season. And apparently, there's optimism that he will be back in the postseason. The question is, can he play defense? Or is he a DH? It is his right index finger. That's his throwing hand. That an index finger, pick up a baseball. The index finger is on a seam. You've got to use your index finger.
Did you see the clip? Did you see the clip of him trying to throw a baseball?
No.
He tried to throw one and he just like slung his arm. He's like, oh man, like that's not going to work.
Ouch.
And it's tough because it could heal. You don't know. It's like a fracture on the tip of your finger. You don't know how long that'll take to get right. It's all about pain management, really. So that's the question. Can't speak to that. He'll be able to hit. You can hit with that finger basically sticking out. You don't really need.
Oh yeah. You
don't need your index finger, but to throw, it's almost impossible. And what's crazy is he's actually been. I was hoping I'd say he's a little bit better, but he's been probably having one of the better defensive seasons he's had in a while. Now that they're not experimenting with him at third base or at shortstop, excuse me, it's been really good at third. 3 defensive runs saved, more than fine, and an outs above average, 1 out above average there. He was -3, -4, -6 over the last 3 years. So enjoying the best defensive season he's had in a long time at third base, and I think whoever they put there is probably going to be a bit of a drop off. So it does hurt a little bit, but your priority with Eugenio Suarez is the bat. And can he come back and hit? I think so. So he should be just fine.
The people don't want to admit it. Eugenio Suarez hit 49 pumps in 2019. It was the most by a Venezuelan born player. Is that right?
I believe it. No, wait, no way. Actually,
I think so. I think it is. Check me on that.
No, isn't Salvador Perez from Venezuela?
Oh, he might have just broken it. Yeah. I think at the time that was the record for most homers by a Venezuelan-born player. But 49 pumps in 2019, he had a 130 WRC plus. He's got a better WRC plus this year than that 49.
He's got a better F4 too. Dude. He's having a better season overall than that year. WRC plus, defense, everything.
This is the best season he's ever had, F4 wise. He was a salary dump in the Jesse Winker deal, and he's a 4.5 win player for the Seattle Mariners.
Look, I loved that move. I didn't think he'd be nearly this good, but I thought, okay, even if he's like a 2 F4 guy, he's going to give you power. He's going to play passable third base. That's a guy that is justifiably worth $9.4 million AAV, because that's really what it ends up. I guess it's a little bit more backloaded if I'm not mistaken, but still, I think they had some money come with them, right? And they have a 2025 club option, which now, I mean, we'll see. It's a little bit a ways away from now. That's still 2 more seasons until then, but or 3, I guess, theoretically speaking. But that's a deal that I think they could easily pick up his option, which is hilarious. Dude. How often do you see a salary dump turn into a club option being picked up? I would love to see how many times that's happened in baseball.
11 this year with Seattle, 11 million next year, 11 million in 2024 in his age 32 season, and that $15 million club option in 2025.
There's a legit chance they pick that up.
Yes.
There's a legit chance they pick that up. He matches last year's home run total, which while doing that, ups his on-base percentage by 50%, ups his batting average by 40 points. It literally does everything you could want him to do. Strikeout rate, roughly the same, walks more. This is just an all-around better baseball player than he was last year. And I mean, man, I I think he's kind of figured it out again and has been able to put it back together. It's funny. We were so quick to swear this guy off after hitting 34 home runs, 49 home runs, 15 home runs in 57 games, then has one disaster year where they experiment with him at shortstop. And we're like, oh man, this guy's
blow
done.
It up.
Well, he's no good. Yeah. He's no good. Maybe we were all too quick because I think we all kind of disregarded Eugenio Suarez. We were all too quick to swear this guy off, and good for Suarez. Hope he comes back quickly. I think he's going to play a big part in their playoff run too, because he has been clutch for them in big spots.
Anything else you want to hit? I've got one more thing that I want to touch on. That was Saturday night, a 2-1 Angels win over the Mariners in Anaheim. Obviously, that game's not going to have much intrigue. Seattle's not very good anymore. But that starting pitching matchup lived up to the hype. I know a lot of people are UFC fans. I'll dabble in UFC, but this was that title fight that I have circled at the beginning of the week. I look on Saturday and I say, oh, wow, good thing I have no friends. Let's go. Yeah. Saturday night, 9 p.m., Ohtani and George Kirby, both rocking sub-3 ERAs. Kirby's ERA didn't jump 1/100 of a point. George Kirby, 6 innings, a 2-run ball, struck out 8, walked 1. So Rome has fallen because George Kirby walked a guy. His ERA stays at 2.98. Shohei Ohtani, 7 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk. ERA drops to 2.43. That was a fun game to watch.
It's funny. I had that game circled, was really excited to watch it, and then just got sucked into the miserable game that was the Miami Hurricanes football game. And the U is not back. Shocker. The U is not back. But wish I watched that game instead. Did not. Going to watch the condensed version later once we finish this, in between football games. And look, what was interesting about that is Mariners have to win for their postseason outlook. The Angels aren't playing for shit until Shohei Ohtani gets on the mound, because he is, trying to steal this MVP award away from Aaron Judge. And shit, man. I mean, like, I'm the biggest proponent of, like, please just give it to Aaron Judge. But at this point, like, it's getting tough. It's getting real tough. And if he does this a couple more times, man, didn't he have a double too? Didn't he have he had a double and a walk? I think he hit well.
I saw a note from their beat writer on the LA Times. Ohtani is 3rd in OPS, 4th in homers in the American League, 3rd in strikeouts, 4th in ERA in the American League.
And I don't want to get into the MVP debate because honestly, I'm starting to get to the point where I kind of resent the MVP award. Is that like a crazy? Because it's become this thing where instead of, and maybe it's the social media aspect of it really that makes me resent it. Yeah. But that is basically what a lot of the reason why it exists is for us to talk about the sport and follow and monitor and whatever. MVP award, it's not just baseball. It's everywhere. There's always just like this. We don't actually know what the defined criteria is because there is no defined criteria. And then you have something new kind of get introduced, whether in any sport, and it makes things even more difficult to conceptualize. And then we just debate on our own priorities of what we think should be, used as the criteria for the award. And it's like, you might value some things more than I value some things. And now like, we're never going to see eye to eye on this award.
Yeah.
And it just turns into this like knocking the other player who's had an exceptional season. Like, oh yeah, well, Aaron Judge doesn't pitch. Well, no shit, he doesn't pitch. But then, just like, oh, well, his center field defense isn't really that good. Like, fuck off. And it's the same thing on the other side. Ohtani, well, like if he's the MVP, maybe his team would be better. No, Ohtani's doing everything he can, right? What does that team look like without him? It's not specifically this scenario, but I am very tired of the combativeness that comes with the MVP award. Somebody could tell me Shohei Ohtani's the MVP and I say, I agree. Someone could tell me Aaron Judge's the MVP. I'd say, I agree. Like I don't have this, like, it has to be this guy or you're wrong and you're stupid and you're an idiot. Like either way, that guy is probably the most valuable player. You can make a case either way. I want to see it go to Judge because this is a historic season. And I think Shohei Ohtani is going to do this annually. And unless he is, you got to pit him against himself in this regard, unless you want to call it the Shohei Ohtani Award and give it to him every single year because he's doing something nobody else does.
It's the LeBron James Award. In reality, LeBron is the MVP every year, right?
Up until like the last 2 years. Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, do you want it to turn into that? That's the big question. I'm with you. I think MVP talk is very old. And there are very few instances where I genuinely take a firm stance on who should be the MVP. Last year, the NL MVP, I firmly believed it should have been Bryce Harper.
I did too.
Bryce Harper won it.
I did. Yeah.
I thought he should have gotten it over Soto and Tatis, but that is once in a blue moon. The true moment that I kind of pulled my emotional energy out of MVP discussions was, you remember that last year with Indy that Peyton Manning was hurt. He was out for the year and the Colts were 2-14 or 1-15.
Yeah. The neck.
Curtis Painter and Dan Orlovsky were splitting time as the quarterback of the Colts. Peyton Manning got MVP votes. I think there was conversation about Peyton Manning getting MVP votes because if Manning was healthy, they would have been a Super Bowl contender, but now they're 2-14. So who's really the most valuable guy here? Fuck off. Yeah. I don't care.
And that's always the conventional thought, like exercise that everyone always loves to use is like, remove this player from the team. And then what would the team look like? We don't know. You can't actually do that. It's not possible.
That's honestly why I kind of like the verbiage behind the college awards, like the Naismith and the Wooden Award in basketball and the Heisman in football. It goes to the most outstanding player,
correct,
not the most valuable player.
Correct. Conceptualizing value is impossible. That's why F war is great, but we have multiple wars. If it was that easy to conceptualize a player's value, we'd have one war and it would be indisputable. And that would yes, that could be a war problem. But the larger point is we haven't figured out how to conceptualize what the most valuable player is. And I think it's become more of this. We are trying to almost be able to put a specific bucket of like, oh, this guy checks this, and this, have a system in place. He's the MVP. I think sometimes you got to follow the narrative. And the narrative this year is that Aaron Judge in a contract year is having one of the most incredible seasons we've ever seen really in the modern era, steroids aside too, especially but even including steroids, what he's doing in the batting average on base department while playing center field. Like that's the coolest part. But at the end of the day, if you want to give it to the alien, I'm cool with that too. So that's my one issue. It's the same thing with Gold Gloves. Don't really care about them. They're fun to talk about. They're fun to, when you look back at a guy's career, he won 10 of them, definitely is a testament to being one of the best in the sport for 10 years at something. But if it doesn't make or break anything for me year to year. But we could do a whole podcast on that. And I'm sure we'll spend plenty of time in the off season when these awards come out. But no, that's it for me for the most part. I think there was one other quick thing I wanted to mention. I mean, I know Michael Kopech.
Rapid fire debuts, actually. Matt Wallner with Minnesota, Jordan Diaz with Oakland. Like both of those guys, Diaz is a high batting average. He's slugging a little bit less than I think we were anticipating he would slug this year. But, that's kind of a fun guy to watch for Oakland.
Absolutely.
Wallner strikes out 1 billion times, hits 1 billion nukes, and will walk a decent bit.
Yeah, it's funny.
Outcome king.
Yeah, Wallner's a 3 true outcome king, massive power, but I actually think you look at him, there's a little bit more hope that he can hit a bit more than, some of the other guys with that profile. So I like Wallner. I think he could be a big league piece for them. And I'm very interested to see how he fits in, whether they look to, trade him. What about Kirilloff? What about Larnick? They have their guys also that are in the big league fold. What are they going to do with Kepler? Wallner's performance over the next, and I know you don't want to draw too much of a conclusion from 2 weeks, but I mean, if he looks really comfortable, that's got to give you a little bit of pause as the Twins and figure out exactly what you're going to do here. Dre Jameson was fantastic in his debut. Fastball was silly. And I mean, there's a lot of opportunity here to see some other youngsters. O'Neal Cruz starting to settle in, which we've talked about. Yeah. I'm excited for this last week or so. And then Arizona Fall League real quick, just tons and tons of top 100 prospects, tons and tons of very talented guys that are either very close to big league ready, that this is kind of their last look before potentially breaking camp next year, or guys that, I think missed some time that are elite prospects that are trying to make up for lost time, like a Henry Davis, number 1 overall pick, in 2021's draft that missed most of the season. Nick Gonzalez, same thing, 2020 top 6 pick. So very fun. Very, very, very fun rosters out there. We're going to break down all of those rosters on the call up, either later today or tomorrow for those listening. Definitely check that out. I'm going to be out there in the fall league. You might be joining me, doing a lot of interviews, doing a lot of stuff out there. So we'll have all the fall league coverage, but breaking down all of the prospects and everything you need to know. I think it's going to be really fun. And it'll be a good way to have your baseball fix while baseball is done during the Arizona Fall League with some of the best prospects in baseball out there.
100%. And again, we will be supplying you coverage. Arm will be out there. I'm hoping to get out there with you. MLB Network, when they do show fall league games, tune in. It's going to be a really good baseball.
Fun. It's really fun. It's really fun. It really is.
Really fun. Yeah. Blueprint to your deposit match on Prize Picks in the episode description. Get your merch. I just ordered some more merch. Again, Diet Smoke. That link is in the episode description. Max Scherzer and Corbin Burns in Milwaukee tonight, 7:45, first pitch. That'll be awesome. So enjoy that ball game. And Peter and I will talk to you tomorrow.